Okay, we're back. I think. I think we're back. Let me hear from some people out there in chat land. What you got? Are we live? It says I'm live. Okay, there we go. People chiming in. Here you are. Well, I think we lost most of the people from the dead battery issue. Yeah, I'm telling you, live stream, I've never seen something eat up the battery as fast as this. So you learn. You see, this is my first one. Number one, you could say you were there when it happened. The dead battery. So, all right, there's some people coming back on. Great. Yep, we're back. We're back. Lesson number one, if you're going to live stream for an hour plus, keep it plugged in. So, was there any other questions? I got a few more minutes. Remember, if you didn't get a question in today, you can log back on next week at noon. And I think I'm going to have a special guest drop in. I want to try doing that. Why not? It doesn't have to be me the whole time. I'm glad to answer questions and talk with you guys. But like I was talking to Jordan Burns, my buddy Jordan, on the live stream on Instagram last night. And I said, hey, what are you doing Sunday next week? Drop in. I'll get 2 chairs. We'll be 2 drum nerds hanging out, talking stuff, talking shop. So have you ever gotten a gig from one of those LA cattle call auditions? Like I was talking about earlier, it's from Marcelo. From one of those gigs, one of those auditions where there's like 20 drummers lined up, I don't think so. Nothing I can think of. I've gotten gigs where I've auditioned, but it's the kind of auditions where it's like what they do. This is a typical thing sometimes. They ask the band, each guy in the band might have 1 or 2 names to recommend. That's happened before. Like when I played with Elliot Yamin, the American Idol guy, back around 2007 and 8. Well, my buddy Russell Ali, amazing, talented guitar player, writer, producer, plays piano. He recommended me for that gig, and I think each guy in the band recommended 1 or 2 people. So there was drummers that auditioned, but it wasn't this thing where there's like 20 people lined up and you go in and you play like 1 or 2 songs each. How do you really get a read on that? You know, and you got to hurry up and set up and deal with this drum set that everyone's playing on all day, and you have to make a good impression and create a vibe. People have definitely gotten gigs with those kinds of auditions, but it just seems like so often somebody that gets the gig in a situation like that is somebody that has some connection to the band. Even though there's all these guys there, they know somebody. There's something that connects them in some way. It's not just they're blindly being hired. They could be a great player, but people like to keep it in the family. They like to hire their friends, or at least someone that's in the circle of friends. So, yeah, I don't think I've ever gotten a gig through the full-on cattle call. I could be wrong. I'd have to think about that, but that's a good question. Let's see. We love seeing you in person, but till then, we can watch your live videos. Thumbs up. Let's see. On a big tour, hi Glenn, on a big tour like Alice, do musicians get paid weekly, bi-weekly, or how does it work? The way it usually works, I mean, there's so many companies now in general that they do the direct deposit thing, weekly, bi-weekly. That's usually how it's done with us. It's just like any other business. They deposit funds into the bank. They get the info to do that. It's all totally high tech now. Real easy to do that kind of thing. Opinion on Denmark. We played at least one killer festival there. I can't remember. What's the name of the big rock festival in Denmark? I remember playing that. It was just nice. Didn't get to spend enough time there last time to really see the city, but yeah, love it. It's great. What other projects have you got coming up aside from Coop? There's a few things. Like, you know who's got a record coming out real soon? I think he's releasing it in like volumes. Phil X. You guys know Phil X? He's the guy. He's now in Bon Jovi. Richie Sambora left, and Phil is his replacement. He started out as being like the sub, I think back about 7 years ago. But then it turned into being his gig. And Phil and I've known him a long time. I was in a band with him way back. It was me and it was Phil and Jason Hook from Five Finger Death Punch was not a metal hard rock band at all. It was like it was a female fronted pop rock kind of thing. And the drummer in that band before me was Jeremy Spencer, who went on to also be in Five Finger Death Punch. And then he brought his buddy Jason into that band. See, it's the bro hookup. But anyways, what was the question? I can't even remember because I'm talking too much. What are the projects? Right. Phil X has a record coming out. It's a bunch of songs and it's a bunch of drummers. There's a different drummer on every song. And Phil just sent me the song that I played on. It was a fun tune, like influenced by, let's say, like Van Halen's I'm the One or Smokin' by Boston. It's Phil's band called The Drills. It's Phil on guitar and vocals. It's Danny Sprewell on bass and vocals. They're both amazing. And we did this one song. They would book different days at studios, and they'd have a few drummers come down on that day and do their individual songs. And we tracked it live. And the mix is great. I think Chris Lord-Alge mixed it. And I recorded the drums actually at Tommy Lee's home studio. It was a while ago. It was, I think it was December of 2014 that I recorded it. But it takes people time when they're in a band and they have a lot going on for their own stuff. That kind of gets put on the back burner. That's coming out. That's coming out soon. And then there's another recording project. I can't talk too much about that, but that is something that's coming soon. I think that's pretty exciting. And of course, there's the new Hollywood Vampires record. That's going to be out, like I was saying earlier, maybe June is what I'm hearing. I can't wait to be able to say an actual release date. But yeah, there's definitely a few things coming up. Let's see, who else do we have? Happy Sunday to you. Hey, Pete, thanks, buddy. Pete Thorne chimed in. He was really cool the other day to give me some YouTube pointers and give me a shout out. We went live on his channel. You've got to subscribe to Pete if you get a chance. He's full of great information for any kind of musician, drums, guitar, whatever. Let's see. People talking back and forth. That's really nice. Missed the first part of the show, so apologies if I've already answered this. Which drummer has influenced you most? Such a tough question, but I was talking about the drummers that influenced me to want to play drums, that influenced me to say that, hey, drumming, that's pretty cool. I think I want to do that. Very typical drummer answer, Neil Peart, Rush, Bonham from Zeppelin. It started there, but then it went out in so many other directions from there. I got into so much other rock, and then I went through heavy jazz fusion phase in high school, got into Billy Cobham, a lot of the 70s fusion, Lenny White with Return to Forever, the Weather Report records, Spyro Gyra. The list goes on and on. Tony Williams, all the Steve Gadd stuff. I just was all about getting as many cool drum-related records as I could. So, and growing up in LA, it did have its advantages. There was always a lot of great shows and drum clinics. It's such a hard question to answer when you talk about influences, because it's like, well, how much time do you have, right? Who else? How do you negotiate a rate recording session? Well, is it somebody self-financing the project? Is it a label involved? How far are you going? Is there gear at the studio? A lot of studios have house kits where I end up just bringing cymbals, pedals, snare drums, the basics. If it's a live gig, what's the learning curve? Is it straight up rock stuff? How much time am I putting into this? What relationship do I have with the person who's asking to hire me for this gig? I'll tell you one thing that I've learned the hard way. When you're negotiating rates, especially with recordings, what happens a lot is people say, hey, I don't have a lot of money right now, but think about the back end, making something later. It's like working on spec, you might say, but it's like you're speculating that something is going to make some money and you'll be a part of that profit later, further down the road. I don't think that's a good idea to work on those terms as a hired session player, unless it's a really good friend of yours that you could do that kind of favor for. But as my friend Ed Roth says, spec means don't expect to get paid. So it's just that you could do something for somebody and it could be on the cheap or maybe free. and maybe 5 years later, it gets used for something. It gets released as a record or added to a soundtrack of a movie or some single that you did that was only for promotion. Well, maybe years later, it gets put on some greatest hits compilation as a bonus track. What are they going to do 5, 6 years later? Go find you and get you more money? No, don't do that. Get paid what you think you should get paid and get paid up front for it. Then you don't have to worry about any of that. That's just a little side note, but something I think is important. Would you ever do a live DVD for lessons for people to learn? I've definitely thought about doing that. It just seems like the idea right now of a DVD, maybe that idea is a little obsolete or getting there because of the online teaching community. I've definitely done instruction online, and it's something I'd like to get more into in the future. It's just, you do something like that, pro shot online content. I think it's something where you have one chance to do it. So you got to do it right. You got to make sure and get things right the first time. The way it looks, the way it's mixed, the drum sound. I'm so picky about those kind of things. If I'm going to do it, I've got to dive into it 100%. And thanks for asking. That's something I should do it, I know. But for now, we've got something like this. Hi, Glenn. It's Ivan from Australia. We had lunch and, oh, hey, what's up, Ivan? Yeah, Ivan Brinklow. We met up the last few times in Brisbane. How do I get to jam at the Lucky Strike with you? That's my residency gig in LA. It used to be every week. And it's crazy that we did that gig every week just because it was a different list of songs to learn. We never repeated songs, which was great. We love this gig because we love learning songs. Were we making a ton of money at this? No, it was not about the money. Like Pete said recently on one of his videos, it's something I really subscribe to. There's 3 categories you could put a gig in. It could be that you're doing it for the money. You're doing it because it's going to make you grow musically as a player. You're learning songs where you're going to come out the other side where you're better for it as a musician. And 3, it's a good hang. You're playing with people. You're meeting people because of this gig, and it could lead to other gigs. If you can get 2 out of 3 of those 3, then it's probably a gig worth taking. But getting back to the Lucky Strike thing, we do it once a month now, which I'm actually glad for. It makes it a little more special to do it that way. So there's less chance of getting different players in because now it's once a month. And we sometimes have like the main guest that does the second set. It's a guest curator. They'll do the entire second set, and that leaves set 1 and 3, where us, the house band, we play a few, and then there's less slots. But Ivan, if you're in LA, I mean, hey, anything's possible. It's just the timing's got to work out to where it's the last Wednesday of the month. That's usually when it happens. Of course, I end up missing a lot of these because I'm on tour, but they're nice enough to hold my spot in the drum chair for when I come back. And it's been great. I love learning songs. And most people that do participate on that gig, like we had Nuno Betancourt in recently. He picked this really cool eclectic list of songs. We loved it. Or Pete Thorne got up and played. We did Van Halen a couple weeks ago. And it was because we loved doing it. You know, not for any other reason. The hang, and you grow as a musician. So let's see. Who do we got? Scrolling down. Pete and Glenn, why not do a live chat together one time? Well, maybe we will. We did for a couple minutes the other day. What sticks do I use? I've been with Regal Tip sticks a long time. This is crazy to say. I've been an endorser of Regal Tip for 27 years since I was 4 years old. Kidding. But I use a signature stick now that they make for that stick mainly for the rock stuff. But I'll also use a 7B if I need to go to a lighter size, or maybe even a 5B. It depends on the genre. The Sobelizer stick, it's a good rock and roll drumstick. To me, I needed something that had just something with a little bit of mid or top heavy. And when you move up in weight in drumstick, what you might find is that it's easier to get a bigger sound out of the drums. It makes it so you don't have to work as hard. People think you add weight to a stick, now you're working harder. Not necessarily. Try moving up in weight in a drumstick and see what happens. There's a threshold that you cross where it will get too heavy, and now it is more work, but that's what you figure out. And Regal Tip was good enough to get with me and send me different weights of sticks for my potential signature stick, and they would have the stick wrapped up, and on the wrapping it would have the kilograms, or I think it was the grams, not kilograms. Grams is the lighter weight, but it would have the number written on it, the weight. And once I got to a pair that seemed too heavy, then I'd back off and say, yeah, you know what, this is good. Let's stick with this and make a bunch of these. And that's how we arrived at what the Sobelizer stick is. A few more questions here we could do. Okay, one more question. Could it be possible to get a pic with you and an autograph in Munich? Possibly. We show up at the gig, and sometimes there's people waiting by the side door, back door, or after the gig. Totally possible. Sometimes we got to get in and get straight to sound check, or if we're leaving, we have to get right out onto the bus, but anything's possible. Love Munich. Great city. Have you used anything besides Sabian? Not that there's anything wrong with those. Well, sure. Used a few different cymbals, tried the other companies, but to me, Sabian, they make it all. Whether I'm playing the lighter fusion type gigs or the heavy rock stuff, they got it covered. And there's still products that they make that I haven't even tried yet. They keep developing great new cymbals. The effect cymbals are just the different lines of crashes. I end up using the AAX explosions a lot, the 19s on the Alice gig. You can't beat that company. Again, don't endorse a company if you don't love the product. It is not about, I want free stuff, give me. You got to love it. They have to see that you use their product and that you're going to be out there playing shows with people seeing you use this product and sounding good, whether it's a tour, television gigs, whatever. It definitely has to do with visibility on behalf of that company, but you can't fake it and say, I'll play whoever will give me stuff for free. You have to play what you're going to like, what's going to make you achieve your sound as best as possible. Vic, what's up? Can you order Sobelizer sticks from the Regal Tip site, or can you only get them at stores? You can definitely order them off the Regal Tip site. As far as I know, I haven't checked this lately, but they have links to sites like Sweetwater, Musician's Friend, where you can go directly to the page where you can order those sticks. Yeah, of course. Thanks, Vic. Your first big gig, Tony McAlpine. This is Mike Beeston. Yeah, Mike and I. In fact, Mike and I think we both met because we were both doing lessons with Greg Bissonette. Pretty sure of that. Mike's a great guy, great drummer. Your first big gig, he asked, Tony McAlpine, can you discuss how it happened and your experience at such a young age? Thanks. I was pretty young when I got that gig. I was 21 when I started playing with Tony. It was my first real pro gig, and it came down to this. I was Greg's student, or I had been his student, because it was 92 when I got this call from Greg. He called me. He said, hey, Glenn, have you heard of Tony McAlpine? I said, oh, of course. I have those records he did with Steve Smith and Dean Castronova. There was Edge of Insanity and Maximum Security. These are like classics in the sort of, I guess, metal fusion, neoclassical metal fusion genre. Shrapnel Records was putting these out. I said, of course. He said, well, start learning the tunes. I just recommend you. I gave Tony's manager your phone number. And I said, wow, okay. Oh my God, thank you so much. I'm going to get on it. And I really wanted to be able to tell Greg, hey, I got that gig. I really wanted to do right by him. And I did. I got the gig. It was a casual jam. It wasn't some big cattle call audition. I think they were just calling people to recommend some names. And it was a jam. And we didn't play too many songs. Tony was putting together a band with a singer. That was the idea at the time. And I remember this one moment. I like to think it was maybe what kind of put it in the bag for me, getting that gig. He started playing a little bit of an Al Di Meola song from Return to Forever off of that Romantic Warrior record. And I started playing along. This is one of my favorite fusion records of all time from the 70s. It was one of those game-changing records, Romantic Warrior by Return to Forever. It's Lenny White on drums, Al Di Meola, Chick Corea on piano, and Stanley Clarke on bass. Nobody had done anything like this at the time, but Yeah, I started playing along, and Tony went, "Oh my God, you know that song? That's so cool." We jammed it a bit, and it was like this bonding moment musically, and I think that's what kind of helped me get the gig. And what we ended up doing, we did the band for a little bit with a singer, did some demos. We did an instrumental record called Madness that is still one of my favorite records I've ever done to this day. Really nice mix on the drums, Larry Dennison on bass. There was actually Branford Marsalis on sax on one song as a guest, which was amazing. My first record ever, and I got to record with a Grammy winner. And yeah, fun record, good memories on that. So thanks for that question, Mike. A couple more here. In-ears or floor monitors? What do you prefer? I think number one is in-ear monitors when it comes to playing live gigs like with Alice, the Vampires, whatever, the touring gig. But I tell you, I think a lot of people that play in-ears will agree with me. Sometimes if you have to do a gig like that, but there's only actual wedges and subwoofers available, it's like refreshing. You kind of change things up. You don't get burnt out on having the in-ears all the time. Locally around town, Los Angeles, usually it's wedges. It's rare to do an in-ear monitor gig in LA, but yeah, if you got to have a good monitor engineer. It's a thing that people ask, who's mixing ears on that tour, meaning who's mixing the in-ear monitors from side stage. You got to have a good guy that knows how to mix for a drummer that has in-ears, how to mix for a guitar player. It's a very personal thing, your in-ear mix, because everything is just right there. And I know a lot of people do not like the in-ear thing. A lot of old school guys, they don't like it. They feel separated, cut off from the crowd, like they're in a whole separate room. But I like the feeling of the band all being together, where we're all feeling like we have the same mix, and it's just us on stage that are hearing it this way, and we trust that the audience is hearing a good mix in the front of house. And it's a kind of a weird mind game you got to play with yourself. You have to not worry about how it's translating out front. I think that's the problem for certain players that have spent almost their whole lives hearing wedges, just a speaker facing up at you where you can hear what you're playing and what the band is playing. I enjoy in-ears. The first time I tried them, I said, yes, this is good. There's no adjustment. There's no time I need to get used to doing this. I liked it immediately. So maybe one or two more. Let's see. You ever been to Alice's restaurant? The meatloaf was out of this world. That would be Cooperstown in Phoenix. It closed though, didn't it? I've been there a lot. Back in the day, back in the 90s, early 2000s, I played there a couple times. I played there with Gary Hoey way back in the late 90s. He's an instrumental guitar player that was my first US tour playing with him. He had a deal at one time on Warner Reprise and then Surf Dog Records. I did a couple things with him, a studio record, a live record, some movie soundtrack stuff. That was a great experience. And then also I played there with Beautiful Creatures back in 2001. I remember it was the band Tantric and us playing at Cooperstown. And then playing, of course, little special events with Alice. Unfortunately, it closed. It was good. The meatloaf, I'm sure, was great. The items on the menu were like named after his kids, which I thought was cool, or named after Alice songs. It was a funny menu, very cool theme restaurant. But, I appreciate you guys getting on the live chat today. And let's do it again next Sunday at noon. I will have my laptop plugged in the entire time. Man, the battery went down in like a matter of minutes. It could be because this laptop, it's not like brand new. It's pretty old. But I appreciate you guys coming on with me today. And I'm going to try and bring in some special guests. I'm going to have some other videos I'm going to upload. I have some ideas for things, and maybe give me some feedback on this, like how to learn a song on drums. That's something I think that is important to put out there. How to learn a song quickly, which involves reading music, but reading music for drums, it's not that complicated. It's not like learning another language. There's a few note values and there's corresponding rests, and you put it together from there. Maybe I'll do some videos on an introduction to reading musical notation for drummers. I promise you, it's not that difficult. That's an intimidating thing, especially to a drummer that's maybe been playing for decades but never got into reading music. But we'll get to all this stuff. And for now, click subscribe on my YouTube channel if you want. And any feedback, we know how to get in touch with each other. Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. This is all part of what a working musician needs to communicate with people, their audience. And I appreciate you guys showing up, a lot of you today. And I know we lost some after the power failure, but yeah, we'll see you next week. And I'll give you a reminder. So again, thanks a lot for tuning in to Sobel Sunday #1. And we'll see you next time. Peace.